All right, guys, here's part two of our unwrapping and mapping materials tutorial. So let's get into this. We have one object here. On my third object, I'm going to crank this up to 4, just so I have some different faces to deal with on this, because what you're going to end up doing eventually is taking an object and breaking it up into different sections, and then you're going to end up, each material on that object might have different textures, might need different mapping coordinates. So here's what I'm going to do. I've got this on here, up the segments, so I can create some different faces on here. I'm going to right click, convert to editable poly. I'm going to choose polygons right now, and I'm going to select one of these, and I'm going to shift select, so it selects a whole ring. See how it does that? So I'm holding shift, kind of slid over here, and then I'm going to select that, so it creates the whole ring there. And what I want to actually do with that is break it. I'm going to detach it from the rest of the object. So I'm going to detach. I'm just going to call this ring, and OK. And so if you look on your Scene Explorer, you'll see here that object is right there. So now I'm going to go back to the rest of my polys. Let's say I want to select these. I want all of these to be one material. That ring is going to be a separate material. Okay, you're going to come across this in some of the projects that we do. So I'm going to go back to vertices. I'm going to, again, configure modifier sets and UV coordinate modifiers. And I'm going to go back up here to my modifier rollout and select Unwrap UVW. Okay, so what UVW is mapping coordinates for your materials. We know how we have mapping coordinates for our objects, which is X, Y, Z, which you can see right here. Those are for the objects. When we're talking about mapping coordinates for materials, we're talking UVW. It's just 3 more letters. It's nothing short for anything. It's just letters to associate with your materials. So that is what UVW means. Unwrapping is basically what we're going to do right now, which is taking all of these sections that I've selected here and laying it all out flat onto a material. So here's what I'm going to do. I've got that selected. I'm still in poly mode. I'm going to go down here to reveal my edit UVs and open UV editor. And this is what pops up. And I'm going to go to mapping, unfold mapping, click OK. And so now I have my different parts here all mapped out. They're overlaying each other, which means the top section that I have selected here, it's unfolded on top of my bottom section, which means there's going to be some repeat for those. As far as the textures and materials go, if I didn't want that to happen, you can just select one side of these or just the top half of this and unfold and unwrap those objects separately. But for time's sake, I'm just going to do them together. There's just going to be a little bit of repeat. It probably won't be too noticeable though. Once I have those unfolded like I just did, I'm going to X out of that. I'm going to go to right click and convert to editable poly. And I'm going to open up my material editor and I'm going to choose a new material. I'm going to go to, so I just selected this, went down to maps at the bottom and open that up. I'm going to go to bump. So I'm going to go right here, double click on my bitmap. And this is a different, you'll find some textures like this. When I downloaded this, it came with 2. It came with a bump and it came with a JPEG. I'm going to use the bump version for this because what it does is basically it's showing off the texture and the raised and lowered areas. So I'm going to click OK on that. You don't get one of these on every download that you do, but I have that applied here. I'm going to go to parent. I'm going to crank that bump up a little bit so I see more of that texture up here. There we go. So now I'm going to go apply the image to it. So I'm going to go up to diffuse color, no map, double click on bitmap. And this one I'm going to choose the JPEG version of that same image. Click OK. It applied it here. Looks good. I'm going to take that now and drag it onto this object. Make sure that it shows shaded material. And there we go. So, got a good image right here. Mapping looks pretty good. Nothing is repeated on all the sides. Showing off a little bit more bump than it would be if it were just a flat image applied to the material. So I've gotten that done. Now for this ring, I'm going to do the same kind of process. Choose vertices, configure modifier sets, UV coordinate modifiers. Let's look into adding our Unwrap UVW, open UV editor, and here's something a little bit different. So I've got 4 sections here, which basically showing me one side like that. If I go to mapping, unfold mapping, okay, you'll see, okay, here's all my sides laid out. Well, that means my texture is going to be really zoomed in on. So remember imagining this as a texture, and we want that texture to apply to this. Well, if you have little pebbles that you want to show on this little part right here, those little pebbles are going to show up quite big because it's basically taking that ring and you're basically wrapping it with that pebble material. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to scale, and I'm going to scale this up. I'm going to actually expand this. I'm going to move this whole thing so I can line it up something like that. I want to kind of shrink it down a little bit, slide it over. I'm going to try to map this out the best I can. All right, so I still have a bunch kind of laying out extra over here. And so what I want to do is I'm going to start to break parts of this material apart. So over here where it says explode, I'm going to take that, and this one, hover over it, says break. So I want to break this. Actually, what I want to do is select the parts that I want to break. So let me zoom out. I'm going to take these, and I'm going to break. So I'm going to take that broken part, and I'm going to put it down here. Now what I'm going to do is select these and break. Move that over here. Kind of see what I'm doing now. I'm going to select these, break, and slide it down over here. Now it's kind of hanging off, so it means I want to take these and kind of shift them up. So, I don't want to waste my wrapping paper, so I'm going to get the most out of this texture mapping process right here as I can. And what I'm trying to do is use as much of this surface to map out this object like I can. So that whole ring is now broken into different parts. It's not physically broken in my project, but I broke it down as far as the mapping goes. And then I'm going to click OK or X out of that. And it's all mapped out. Now I just need to apply the texture to it. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to find a different texture. I'm going to go to maps again, bump, get lots of practice doing this. Find a good texture that will work. Let's say something that's going to be different than that. All right, let's use this dirty old metal right here. Open that, go to parent. I'm going to crank that texture up. I'm going to go to my diffuse color bitmap. Use the same one, open it up. There it's applied. I'm going to show material in viewport and drag it onto that object right there and exit out. All right, I'm going to turn that back into an editable poly, and I'm done. So now I've got 2 materials mapped out, bumps mapping applied, and we're all set. So that's looking pretty good. That is basically it for the second part. Just wanted to go over how to combine 2 different objects, break them apart, and then add your own materials for each one. So we'll see you in the third part. Later.